Welcome to part 5 of my Kundalini diary. As always, if you haven't seen the other parts of my series yet, please consider watching them first, otherwise this won't make a lot of sense. Kundalini Awakening, Hands of the Inner Self. Day 45. My God, I feel as if I have one foot in this world and one foot in another, and I just can't reconcile the differences. This state of derealization makes everything feel unreal and almost unbearable. Because of this, I have ceased all my practices for the time being. Thankfully, I have stopped trembling, so I can only assume I'm continuing to stabilize, but I am still afraid of closing my eyes since whenever I do, the inner phenomena intensifies greatly, which makes me worry I'll experience the nightmare consciousness all over again. I still cannot quite believe the trauma I inflicted on myself the other day. I am trying so hard to take care of my responsibilities, despite feeling as vulnerable as I do right now. I made dinner for my family, and then spent the rest of the evening building a village with my daughter in Minecraft. Later in the evening, I worked on some sacred geometry designs for my online shop. Towards the end of the evening, I felt my inner experience gradually grow and grow in its intensity again. Whenever I gulp, I still feel as if my Adam's apple is flipping in an almost mechanical fashion. It's quite unnerving and reminds me of the trauma I experienced last night. In an attempt to ground myself and take my mind off the inner phenomena, instead of meditating, I decided to have a run around Dartmouth Park's football pitch, and this was the early hours of the morning. As soon as I reached the football pitch, I ran as fast as I possibly could, until I felt as if I was going to puke with exhaustion. This minimized the pseudo-physical inner sensations I'm constantly feeling, and helped ground me while I was running at least. My entire nervous system feels as if it's in the process of being rewritten, and I am starting to forget how my body felt prior to all of this. I feel the reality of this inner experience far more than anything I could experience in physical terms. More and more, ordinary bodily sensations feel secondary and intermixed with the inner phenomena. I almost feel as if I'm trying to adapt to a brand new body, and I suppose in some ways that's exactly what I am doing. Day 50. I initially wrote that I had completely stabilized and resumed my practices, but realized as I was writing this that I was attempting to deceive myself. I have stabilized enough to resume my practices, but I am still struggling to shake the fear of experiencing yet another bout of nightmare consciousness. I still cannot handle focusing on my heart. The past few nights have been extremely difficult, since only now am I starting to shake the fear of closing my eyes. At night, I have been falling asleep listening to the Ricky Gervais and Carl Pilkington podcast, which at least got me laughing again. I have also been enjoying listening to the old Joe Rogan podcasts with Graham Hancock. Day 60. Over the past week, I have spent all my free time exploring the structures I feel within. This has served to further increase my awareness, sensitivity, and control. I still don't know what it is I am experiencing exactly, and I am also still hesitant to draw any premature conclusions. I will try again to explain exactly how this bizarre inner sense seems to work. With eyes open or eyes closed, I can place my focused attention on any part of my body. You can get a sense of this by choosing a part of your own body and focusing your awareness upon it. You could try it right now with your hand or finger. While focusing on your hand or finger, notice how you become more sensitive to the sensations present within it. When you do this, you might also feel the weight of your attention as it is placed upon your finger. When I do this, however, I begin to feel the inside of wherever in my body I am actively focusing on, and I am able to navigate around the general area for as long as I am able to maintain focus. At first, the sensations and touch data are quite faint and difficult to perceive, but the longer I maintain focus, the more vivid the sensations become. After I stop focusing on a part of my body, the inner sensations gradually recede back to the crown of my head. Now, whenever I perform these practices in meditation, I initially still feel all the muscle, tissue, and bone, but I then start perceiving objects I know aren't really there in physical terms. For instance, I am now feeling ball-bearing-like objects at all chakra locations, but as I go deeper, I feel as if the ball bearings are seemingly connected or tethered to a bone-like wheel. I don't know if there's any validity to this being a component of our bodies in a metaphysical sense or what, but for all I know, I could be creating these inner objects myself through my expectation. I can feel them form spontaneously sometimes from this rubbery tissue-like material that I feel within. Regardless of what these objects are or what they represent, I feel them far more vividly now than anything I could feel in my hands physically. As I go deeper in meditation, the experience starts to feel more expansive and less biological in nature. I've reached states of awareness where I feel like a water-soluble tablet dissolving in an ocean. Whenever I reach this state, I can no longer feel my body, and my conscious awareness seems far more peripheral in nature. This is the level in which I seem to be able to leave my body with ease and venture into what feels like other dimensions of expression. I still don't seem to have conscious control of where I end up yet, but when I do allow myself to just go with it, I feel as if I'm being carried by a strong current of water. And as I'm being carried, it isn't unusual for me to feel a sense of acceleration and motion. I sometimes even feel as if I'm tumbling down a hill or on a fast roller coaster. Descending through these levels in meditation reminds me of throwing a pebble, which in this analogy represents conscious awareness. The further I go, or the further the pebble falls, the more peripheral and abstract everything becomes. Descending through these levels is an automatic process once I am sufficiently relaxed, just like everything else. It is just a case of allowing an experience to unfold. At the deeper levels, the pressure is usually either minimal or completely absent, which leads me to suspect that the constant pressure I feel is just a symptom of something I'm doing wrong, at least on a surface level. It's most likely a consequence of my own resistance, but again, I'm not sure. I feel excited by the sense of freedom I experience at the deeper levels of consciousness. I am also entertaining the possibility I could be experiencing firsthand just how multidimensional consciousness really is. Yet, I still feel as if I'm only scratching the surface. Another interesting thing I've noticed is the deeper I go, the more I feel like I know what I'm doing. Sometimes I feel as if I am making use of subconscious understanding. I mean, despite how bizarre and unusual this experience is at times, there's still an air of familiarity that I cannot really account for. More and more, I feel as if we exist on many levels and other dimensions all at once. I believe I'm experiencing the validity of this concept in meditation and whenever I perform my practices. I have always been interested in spirituality and always carried certain spiritual beliefs. For instance, I've always had the belief that I am a soul experiencing myself, others, and the world through the lens of a human personality. But it's one thing to accept the validity of this on an intellectual level, but it is another thing entirely to know and feel the validity of this within my own experience. Day 61. I think I now understand the dream I mentioned in one of my previous entries. You know the one where I discovered a letter sitting on top of an antique desk. The letter read, "Behold, the server who ate his own hands," and then I woke up. Well, earlier while continuing my inner exploration, I felt what I can only describe as a fully formed miniature hand. It is complete with small sharp fingernails, bone, and soft wrinkled skin, as if it's been soaking in water for hours. I cannot begin to describe just how physical this hand feels. I found it suspended in a stream of energy within or just outside of my crown. I do not have control of it yet. It seems to move sporadically. One thing I have noticed about this hand though is that it seems to respond to my subconscious intention or direction. I assume it's directed by my subconscious mind because although I don't consciously know what it's going to do, none of the movements it makes feel surprising to me. I take comfort in knowing it's likely a part of me, which is reassuring. Initially, I entertain the possibility it could belong to a third party since I'm not entirely sure if it was inside the crown or just outside of it. Day 65. To my surprise, the point of concentrated awareness that I move around my body seems to be a hand too. I confirm this when I attempted to direct the hand towards my point of awareness in the hope of perceiving whether or not my awareness had form. To my surprise, I managed to lock the fingers of the hands together. I suspect the hands correlate with left brain, right brain function, but that is just another assumption really. My primary inner hand, which is the point of awareness I navigate throughout my body, seems to reflect left brain function and functions similar to moving my physical hand. It's so similar in fact that I find myself moving my left physical hand constantly while practicing. I should have realized this sooner, since I've been able to hold the inner objects I've described in a similar way to holding or touching something physically. I have not yet been able to reliably move the fingers of the inner hands independently, but I am making progress. Day 67. The hands, unsurprisingly, appear to be connected to thin, arm-like stems. They feel more flexible than conventional physical arms and remind me somewhat of serpents. I know I keep saying this, but I'm truly blown away by just how physical these inner hands are in how I perceive them. Whenever I use one hand to squeeze the other, it is as if they have a bone skeleton, which obviously I know cannot really be the case. Day 68. My control is steadily improving, and I am growing far more sensitive each day to this inner phenomena. But I still don't think I've come close to healing this inner trauma, considering I am still fearful of drawing attention to my own heart. So recently, I have just been continuing my exploration of the objects I perceive within. Day 70. I discovered some strange new objects deep within my crown. They feel like rubbery, hollow and squishy pods that have the texture of a dog's paw or pad, or bubbles of smooth-feeling leather. They almost remind me of pre-bloom opium poppies in their shape. Like I said before though, I'm not trying to imply that I think they have a physical reality or anything like that, but they've felt different enough to make me want to at least make a little note on them. Whenever I direct my concentrated focus upon these pod-like objects, they seem to condense and become far more solid and compact. They then begin to feel like small rubber balls with a small nub on top of them. When I relax my focus a little while meditating, the small nubs at the top seem to stretch outwards like thick gum. I notice they seem to have a stem, which is another reason why they remind me of pre-bloom opium poppies. After I eventually turned my awareness away from them, I wasn't able to locate them again, which adds to the general sense that I must be creating these inner objects somehow. I also noted some other artifacts and objects I felt while exploring. Metallic rectangle with circular cuts tethered to what feels like a thin elastic strip. They seem to move within the stream of energy. Countless independent ball bearings culminating at the top of my head near my crown. They appear to gravitate towards one another, and the shape of them shifts whenever I direct my focused awareness towards them. When this happens, they seem to squish and feel more organic. On a side note, please bear in mind that many aspects of this experience are impossibly difficult to describe. The only way I can somewhat explain and describe aspects of this is by drawing strange parallels with textures and objects I've previously touched or encountered. I would also like to make clear that I do not see these objects I describe. They are felt as if I am physically holding them internally. I am feeling the artifacts the way a blind man would feel or perceive physical objects by touch. As I've said and implied before, I am presently only aware of texture, consistency, motion, pressure, a faint sense of temperature and space. Day 71. I am now feeling the hands at all chakra locations, but the hands I perceive in the lower chakras don't feel as immediate or as sensitive as they do at some of my other chakra locations. Perhaps the hands I perceive throughout my body are themselves a component of my own awareness. Perhaps this is why I perceive them at each chakra location, and why I can only feel two at any given time. Yeah, that actually makes more sense. I've been thinking about my chakras, or energy centers, quite a lot recently. I have been exploring them internally in an attempt to further understand their purpose, function, and their expression within my everyday experience. Whenever I experience anything, I turn my attention within and see which chakras feel more active. For instance, whenever I play with my daughter, I feel the bulk of the experience within my heart, which is logical, considering it is a heart-centric experience. The energy emanating from the other chakras is still there and present, but to a lesser degree. Whenever I try and offer advice to my loved ones, I feel the experience primarily in my throat, but also my third eye and also my heart. It kind of reminds me of playing a chord on a guitar. Day 72. My control is continuing to improve. My awareness of subtle inner energy is also increasing. Clearing my mind has become easier too. While meditating, altered states of consciousness occur almost immediately. The sense of acceleration I described is still present. All bodily sensations have continued to grow, and I am happy to say that I really do not find all this as disturbing as I once did. I'm also happy to report that I'm no longer squeamish in any sense of the word. This is quite significant, as I would previously wince and recoil at the sight of blood or anything too fleshy. That isn't to say I've become desensitized to the sensations of quite literally feeling the insides of my body, but I suppose I am growing more accustomed to everything and gradually feeling more secure within my new inner environment. I realized I was no longer squeamish when I found myself feeling the outer rim of my eye sockets and admiring the texture and consistency of the bone. That's a sentence I never thought I'd say. My body in general is starting to feel more intimate to me in many ways. I cannot help but feel the body is more than just a vehicle. The inner experiences that are possible is still mind-blowing to me. The body feels of me or a part of me in a way that I can't fully comprehend. I really do see the body as a physical extension of my soul rather than just a vehicle to be scrapped at the end of a lifetime. For all intents and purposes, my body is a symbolic representation of my soul. Again, that's the difference between accepting a concept intellectually versus understanding it through experience, lived experience. One interesting thing I noticed about the sensation of tuning into a part of my body is that initially it's like trying to see an object through a turbulent body of water. As I focus, it feels as if the water becomes still and I am able to feel the body part. It really does feel as if I'm operating a finely tuned instrument, something extremely sensitive. I think that's why I initially confused the hand I was navigating with for a tongue, because that's what the sensitivity reminds me of. Anyway, thank you for watching my video to the end. I appreciate it more than you know. In my next video, I'll be sharing the entries that followed. If you have any questions about anything, please don't hesitate and ask. I will either respond directly to your comment or answer in a future video.